as well. Recording will be shared internally, of course. First of all, let me get started with doing a little bit of a promotion. And no, I'm not promoting things because of money reasons. This is actually because I want to make things a little bit easier on myself. And what have we done? Our amazing Orgis has developed quite a bot which can do quite a few things for you. Among other things, this bot is good because we have lesson channels which we automatically create and to which we can add users. So I'd like to ask that if you haven't joined that yet, that you please do. It would be really appreciated. That link is going to be in the chat as well. Feel free to join and we'll add you guys to the appropriate channels as we go. One of the cool features that this thing has is this thing has actual, let me see here. So it has reminders, it has guides on how to get started, and basically, oh, here's your lesson that's coming up. But the cool shit is, let me scroll up a little bit. It's been a while since I've done this for myself, is that it can actually generate certificates for you. And it's probably because this is Cheese Master version 2.3 that I don't see the certificates. My certificates are probably in the others. What was it again? Orgis generate cert, right?
Get cert.
Get cert, get cert, and then let's do it. In my case, for a lesson that I've been able to attend, it'll only do it for lessons that you attended. I have to do that not here. I have to do that in my server, the dumbass. Yeah, Uncle Rat's on a roll today, guys. Let's go. This is gonna be a great lesson. Awesome. Very private while I share it on screen. Oh, I'm fucking up somewhere. I know there's a certificate comment in here somewhere.
Or is it just, I can't remember, is it just
Oh, it's
cert?
just cert these days.
It was
Right,
get
you've
cert.
simplified it.
Yeah, forgot about that.
Yeah, you have to be, see,
Uh,
that's what I mean. You have to be subscribed to
it
the
just
lesson.
usually,
That's a perfect demonstration of what I meant. So let's just
okay,
use
just
this
try lesson
lesson.
51.
Yeah, let's
Do
use
this
the
one.
current one. So that's what we want. There we go. Let's go. What name would you like? Asswipe McFart face. Now it's thinking, should I allow this or not? No, no, it's generating my certificate. And I have a nice little certificate of completion. I'm going to share that on my other screen because that's there. I have a nice little certificate of completion for Asswipe McFartface. Isn't that cool? That's awesome, right? So basically what I want to say is please do join the server. That way we can add you to the lesson and you can get certificates for your LinkedIn. I mean, a certificate's a certificate, right? It is definitely useful to get you on the map. Another thing that I have to tell you guys is I'm sorry, I forgot that I had a little bit of a sticker over my webcam. That's not gonna help a lot now, is it? That's a lot better. So let me get you guys a nice background there. Use virtual background. No, 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 not choose avatar. What the fuck? What the hell is this thing? Why am I so old? I feel like I'm getting old. That's better. There we go. All right, so let's get started, shall we? I want to ask you guys, first of all, I want you to teach me what you understand in terms of broken access control. And I'm going to stop sharing that screen for a moment and I'm going to start sharing a whiteboard. I should be able to do that in a document, whiteboard, loading whiteboards, create a new whiteboard. So that's the broken access control one that we're going to fuck around with. You guys can see the whiteboard, right? You guys can follow along. Is that possible? Everything good there? Good accuracy fast. Yeah, you'll have to forgive me for my age. Like somewhere it went wrong and like suddenly I jumped from 12 years old to 50. I don't know how that happened, but we'll get over it. I see people can follow and watch. That's perfect. That's exactly what I want. Oh no, I'm not drinking coffee at 10 p.m. What kind of a maniac do you think I am? Okay, fine. I'm drinking coffee at 10 p.m. Cover didn't ask for your opinion. Let's go. Let's talk about broken access control. What do you guys think about broken access control? Note it in the chat. You guys can also draw on screen if you guys prefer that. What do you think broken access control is? Give me some elements of broken access control. Anything. We'll start with mind mapping. Let's do it that way. Let's start with mind mapping. So let's start with that's disgusting. There we go. Let's start with a shape. Let's start with a circle. Oh shit. That's not what I wanted. Let's do something like that. So we'll start with the broken access control. Now, what do we have here? Simply a broken scenario is simply a scenario in which an attacker can access, modify, delete, or perform actions outside an application or system's intended permissions. I like that. There is definitely a lot of truth to that, but let's try to dissect that a little bit into its components because there's certain elements here to which this could apply, basically. Let's talk about the API level versus the web level. So there's going to be differences in those two already. We need to talk about those, but they also have similarities. So I see here that you say a scenario can access. So let's start with that. So they can have unmodified or unwarranted access to data. What does that mean? That you have a certain access controls. Now, how do those access controls work? And you'll have those both in web and API. Now, how do those access controls work? You'll have and there's more than just web and API access control issues. I know that, by the way, but I'll focus mainly on those two. Access control works through authentication. So there's different authentication mechanisms that will help you control access to certain resources. That's the same for web, that's the same for API. Now, here's where it's going to get a little bit different. So, for web, you're going to have mainly two types of IDOR, two types of bug. And you'll see this in the terms of the horizontal, and you'll have the vertical broken access control. So there's access control there, and it's mainly split into two pieces. So from web, you could draw the conclusion that there's these two that you need to focus on mainly. On API level, there's one more. Let's draw the conclusions here. Here you are going to have another one that's going to be so you'll have on function level. You're going to have one on level of the property. And you're going to have one on the level of the object. So there's three types of broken access control here versus two types of broken access control on web. We need to take that into account. So let's make these common areas. Let's make them a little bit of a color. Can we color them in? Let's see if we can group those. That's okay. We'll just fill. There we go. So these yellow parts, these are basically shared parts. These are API parts, so we'll group those together as well. And then you have the web parts, which are going to be here. Let's group those together. Let's give these a nice little infill. Let's make them, I don't know, red. Well, that's hard to read, isn't it? Let's make them light green. All right, and then let's make this one light green as well. Okay, so let's start with API then. API, we already grouped that. Let's give that a nice little color, light red. Sounds great. Okay, and then let's give this the same orange color so we can say that those are shared parts. All right, so in this course, in this whole section, I want to focus on this entire thing. Now, these access controls, the authentication, there's different types of authentication that actually exist. So you can have, for example, JWT, you can have OAuth, you can have the basic authentication, you can have authentication based on a session ID. And then there's also, of course, the session ID versus the authentication debate. We'll get more into that later. But all of these authentication mechanisms will matter more and more as we go deeper in this course. It's important to understand them because you're going to need to exploit these things in a semi-automated way. And before you can do anything like this semi-automated on any type of professional level, you're going to have to ensure that you know what the fuck you're talking about when it comes to your authentication tokens. Because let's talk about authentication tokens. Let's start there. We're going to zoom into these authentication tokens and we'll forget about session ID for a moment. We'll talk about JWT, OAuth, and BASIC. What is an authentication token? Can anybody tell me what an authentication token is? What's the definition of an authentication token? By the way, that's a good answer as well, Balloon. As well, Admiral, I like those answers. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I like these types of interactive sessions. It's a lot easier for me to teach that way. It's a deep question that I asked, right? Anything used to verify a user's identity and grant them access to specific resource or dude, that is spot on. Congratulations, man. That's the best explanation I've heard from a student since I started teaching these lessons. And the thing is with that, that sounds funny, but that identity part, it's basically a representation of yourself. It's a representation of who you are. Like my ID, for example, that's also a token. My physical ID, that's a token because it's a representation of my identity. Your passport, that's a token. In like in Belgium, they call it Rijksregister. In America, I think it's called a social security number. All of these things are tokens that represent you. And these tokens, what are their use basically? Why do you get a token? Because you don't want to have to authenticate every time. Every single time that you want to do an action, you don't want to authenticate. So what have they thought about? Let's make an authorization token, give you basically a token to after you log in, after you authenticate, after you identify yourself, after you give the officer your passport, he'll give you a ticket, which is the representation of yourself. After you identify your baby to the city hall, they will give your baby a social security number. Basically, the identification is just that login part or the registering slash login part, whereas the authentication is then giving that baby its social security number. So really well done, dude. That answer is really spot on. I love it. Good job, dude. It's really important to know this. And why is it so important? Because we need to know which authentication token we are playing with when we're going to semi-automatically hunt for this stuff. It seems like I'm going to start with a lot of maybe quote unquote basic stuff, but I would like to highlight or like press on the fact that it's anything but basic. The thing is, what we are going to do is I want you guys to realize that when I show you a little bit of a lab environment, when I show you a little bit of a testing environment that me, Orgus, or my team has created, these labs aren't real life scenarios. And I think most of you realize this by now. Because admit it to yourself, how often have you spent time on labs and afterwards you're completely fucking lost in a real life scenario? Like you can't even get started on bug bounties, let alone fucking bind a bug. Is that true? Am I correct? Like, right? Damn, fuck that shit, dude. I feel you guys. I feel you guys. Why is that? Because I have the same fucking shit. When I got started, I was like, what do you even report in bug bounties? Okay, like I know how to find certain things now, but what type of target do I even pick? There's a 250 billion different targets out there and 500 gazillion platforms. What the fuck do I go for, dude? This is fucking scary. And it was scary because there's all these big ass hackers. Dude, let me tell you, once you break the barrier, once you break in, there's like an 85% success rate. But breaking that barrier is disgustingly difficult. It's disgustingly difficult because you're going to learn about certain methodologies. You're going to be putting together certain ways that you learn about, like access control, for example, and you still don't have the full picture. Because how often have you learned about IDOR and it just tells you to change an identifier to a different number? My friends, let me tell you, if you do that and you work for me and you change in production to a different user that you don't own and you see their data, you're fired on the spot. If I notice that, you're fired on the fucking spot. And that sounds a little bit extreme, but how dare you, like that's fucking laws. That's fucking laws, dude. And the thing is, people just don't understand. What am I really doing? What am I really testing? It's so super important to stand still or the fact, okay, I am now going through this application. I want to make it a little bit easier for myself. There's a very big reason why for me it was so easy to find broken access control issues when I am hacking. Like if I am hacking, there's two things that make it super easy for me. Number one, I automate stuff. Number two, I set myself up for success. Now, what do I mean by setting myself up for success? I pick the right targets. I picked targets which I have a hunch for that are going to be vulnerable. And I gotta admit this, I have this little advantage over a lot of people where I understand things a lot faster. So if I am testing a target, for me, it's really easy to understand. And for me, it's really easy to feel if it's going to be something for me or not. But you can already tell from the start if you're going to like it or not. Like the thing is, if you don't like a target, move on, pick a different one. But do stick to a target long enough to get things. And I know that a lot of you want to try bug bounty hunting. Well, my friends, this is the shit. This is literally the shit that you need to make money because this is consistent money. This is stuff that you can find consistently. And what do I mean by consistently? If you're really up for the challenge, at least a few per day. And that is no exaggeration. Like if you can find good targets which you can stick with for a long ass time and you can rotate because they deploy new shit, you're in a really good spot. And especially if you're not a stupid moron who doesn't know how to automate their shit. Because guys, for fuck's sake, this for me is if I have different user groups, I will click through an application multiple times. And after just clicking through, after just determining a user path, after like I will set everything up nicely. And then at the end, I will have a nice little report. I go through it. Blah, blah, blah. A good test that would take somebody who's manually testing all of these endpoints would take them weeks, takes me like not even an hour if I am very prepared. And the reason for that is that I will note down endpoints and stuff like that. But let's talk about this authentication a little bit after. Like, it's important that we do get a little bit acquainted with that. So let's first get on to this. I want to show you. Oh, right. I'm not sharing my screen, am I? Let's start with this. So basically, we know that dynamic applications require segregated access control. And access control ensures specific actions are restricted to authorized users. Now, let's start with access control. We've talked about authorization, authentication. We know what that is. We know about different ways that authentication happens. I haven't touched upon authentication versus session ID just yet. Now, what you also need to know is that some sites are badly programmed and they operate on session ID alone. What is actually a session ID? Basically, the session ID gets assigned to you when you make a connection to a web server, and that session ID allows the web server to know who you are in certain cases that can be very useful. For example, if you're logged in, to keep you logged in and stuff like that. So there are certain ways that session IDs are still used for CSRF tokens, for example. But in our case, we will usually be looking at authentication tokens, and that's mostly in the header. You're going to have authentication headers, and we will focus a lot on JWT and basic headers. Now, why is that? That's because the targets that we're actually going to touch upon live also focus on these types of things. They focus on these types of like JWT, OAuth, basic authentication. We'll get through that. Oh shit, fuck. What the hell is going on? Not again. Ah, I got this pop-up that the meeting is ending in 10 minutes. I thought I just upgraded. What the fuck? Didn't I just upgrade Argus? Am I going crazy? I am going crazy, aren't I? I'm probably going crazy. Yeah, so let's just call this part two, guys. That's okay. If it ends in 10 minutes, that's no problem. The thing is, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a new meeting up. We'll call this the break time then, and we'll see each other in that new meeting and we'll get started when everybody joins there. I'm going to export this board as well, so we have it, but let's get that set up first so everything is in order. So let me do that real quick for you. Let me stop sharing. Let me export this whiteboard. Exit full screen. Great preparation from my end. I really did think we were. I thought that yeah, almost not too long again, go updated, but that's my bad. Why can't I see Zoom? There we go. So let's create a new meeting. Schedule DESC intro part two. That is today. That's gonna start at right now. Why not? We can also get that arranged by then. And that way we can hunt a little bit more. So I'm going to paste an invite to part two in the messages. Yeah, I really thought that we upgraded, but fuck that shit. Time to make my third cup of coffee. Holy shit, dude. That is fucking ridiculous. That is ridiculous. Ooh, lock my screen there. There we go. Anyway, guys, well, the timing that is left in this meeting is about 7 minutes. Yeah, I think I may have used the wrong account once again. So I'm gonna jump to the next meeting. We'll hold a short break after, and then I will see you guys there. See you in a bit. Cool. There we go. So let's share the screen. Is my screen shared? Yeah, my screen is shared, right? All right, so let's move back a little bit. So we talked a little bit about horizontal and vertical access control. So let's see here. What you see here on screen, you have different endpoints, you have different types of users. Admiral, is that horizontal or vertical broken access control? That's a difficult one, isn't it? Vertical. That's actually correct. Good job, dude. Good one. Nice. I like it. That's a very nice one. Now, why is it first? No, no, I'm not that kind of guy. So, indeed, this is vertical. That's very correct. Why is this vertical? Because horizontal, it has to do with objects. This in no sense has to do with objects. This has to do with functions. There are specific functions here, and that's always going to be vertical. Isn't it important that you know this? No, but if you make a report saying horizontal access control issue, and it's a vertical access control issue, they're gonna look at you funny. I mean, they'll still reward you the bounty, but like they're not gonna reward you any bonuses for a good written report, if you know what I mean. So I do think it's important, at the very least, that you speak the same terminology and that you understand what vertical means and horizontal, why they call it that. So it's a good job. I love it. Now, why am I showing you this permission matrix? And that's what we call these types of things, permission matrices. Why am I showing you this? Because every time you come into an application, this is what you should be doing. This is what you should be creating. Doesn't matter what application, and we will be doing this a lot. I will ask this of you. This doesn't apply for either. You don't have to do this per se for horizontal, but it does help to keep notes and to take notes. Sorry, Marius, could you please repeat?
Sorry?
Oh, no. No problem. I thought you had a question. So from this end, what you do is you list all of the endpoints or the functions, how you want to do it, but know that you have CRUD actions on this. Now, what was said really well before by one of you guys was that you had read, update, delete, access, that was a read, update, and then you had the delete to remove data. That's so really, those things are really important to realize that for every object in an application, in a business-to-business application, you're going to have CRUD functions. And not every object will have every or CRUD object CRUD function enabled. Like for example, the user. You can read, update your password, but you cannot delete your password, right? So that's one of those things. And now I'm even talking about properties. I'm not even talking about objects. You cannot delete your own user, right? Like you can, especially in certain like gyms and shit like that, deleting your own user, that's out of the question. You can be happy if being subscribed from the gym by writing a 65-page essay that you have to perform in front of the entire staff, my man. So yeah, it's important to realize that this needs to be made, create, read, update, delete actions. What does all of that mean? I have this cool site that I like to keep called Red Site. Now, what's Red Site? Let's see if I can find that on Google. Red Site on Expert. Look at that. Look at that pretty fucking site. Who made that smacking banger? Oh, wait, that's us. Sometimes I forget how brilliant we actually are. So when we log in here, and we will do this later, what does that mean? This means that somebody fucked up my shit and put an XSS up my ass, but that's not what I was referring to. What does it mean what I was referring to before? I was referring to objects, I was referring to functions, I was referring to user types. Do you have this in all types of bug bounty programs? That's my question to you all. If your answer is anything but a resounding no, you're failing. Like this is definitely not available in all bug bounty programs. Please do realize that this is only available in a selection of bug bounty programs called business to business applications. Why is that? Because on a regular newspaper or blog website, you're a user. You are a user, not a admin. You're not a I don't know, HR employee. You are the user, period. And that's why you need to avoid those things if you want to look for broken access control. It's much more important to go for applications like RedSite, where you're actually going for a business to business application. This was meant as a bit like I have a business and I sell this to businesses, because what would the average consumer need fucking invoices or orders for, or cheese processors or contacts? Like this is meant to be some type of CRM application that is very clear. Now, what do we need to do is we need to, for each of these objects, we need to determine what each user type can do. Now, There is no user types in here, so that's kind of luck. But what we do have is if I go to the users page right here, I could have one user who could do everything and one user who could do nothing. But guess what? The top is missing. So you don't know what these checkboxes do. And did I do that intentionally? Maybe. Maybe not. Who knows? Why is that? Because I'd like you to compare. I'd like you to compare between users. I'd like you to make another user and I'd like you to see what that user can do if you uncheck a box or cannot do. You can go through the entire website. You can see what that user cannot do if you uncheck everything. And then you can selectively re-enable things to see what becomes available again if you're better at additive reasoning like that. I prefer reductive reasoning, where it's like, okay, what has been removed from this website now that I actually removed one of these functions? But you need to have two users, and I am going to fuck this admin user right up its butt. I'm gonna say nope, 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 nope. I'm such a dick, aren't I? Let's update the rights. Okay, so right now I've set update rights. I can just go and I can reload the page, see that it's definitely done. And then I'm gonna log in as admin. Check that out. That's a lot less, right? So let's start here. Let's start with this user type. Good user type to start with. We have a couple of objects that we have direct access to. I'm going to, there we go, perfect. So we have contacts in this regard. We have our own user as the object we have access to. This does not have anything to do with access control. This does not have anything to do with access control because everybody can access it. Like, why would I give a fuck? Why would I even test? Neither does this. Neither does this. These are not objects. These have nothing to do with access control. Logout, yeah, well, fuck that shit. So we have two things that we can focus on here. Home also nothing to do with access control. We have contacts and we have our own user that we could focus on because we do have access to change user settings and we have access to contacts. So as a user, that's great. That's magnificent. That is fantastic. Let's move over to contacts. It seems like I drew a bunch of squiddlies on the page. Hey, that's good job, Wes. That menu lines out perfectly. That's nice. So basically, I have different contacts here that can either be public or private for this specific user. Now, let's edit an item. So I can edit contact. I can see that I can do that, and I can delete contacts. I can also see that I can get pop-ups from annoying people who like to put fucking XSS up my ass all day. Stop it. So let's create a new contact. Let's start with that. Let's call them let's call them, no, stop that, dude. Fucking continue. Are you fucking joking me? So we have a public contact here that we just created. We called that person A or something. I don't remember exactly. Yeah, it doesn't matter. We have enough. We have enough public contacts that are other people's public contacts. That's good enough. So we can see other people's contacts here. What does that mean? We can also see the other people's contacts identifiers here. Let me change that identifier at the very top. See, I can see that person's user. But what if I change it to something like 376, which I don't have access to, or should not have access to? Error, not your item. That's fucking fantastic, isn't it? Now, you want to know what the beautiful part about all of this stuff is? If you guys come here tomorrow, site may be different. Site may actually give you something back. Why is that? Because we have an administrative backend. It's fucking fantastic. It really is. No, I'm gonna delete all of your annoying XSS vectors. Who likes XSS anyway? All right, gents. So continuing, user settings. I have access to user objects. Now, what user object am I changing? Let's see what this form does. We have a form, edit user with method post, name. Well, there's your fucking genius who did that. That's probably me. Then last name. And you can change the user to admin or not. Also CSRF token, because here we see is admin. And that's about it. Is there any identifier here? Is there any possibility to change other people's users? No, there is not. There definitely is not. But that's messed up, isn't it? Now, that's basically the end of the road for us, except for context. If we don't know that there is more to be had here, how could I get to know more from rat side? How could I get to know more endpoints without having to do my best? Real simple solutions. Think simple. Who's the best indexer in the world? By far, and also the best fucking advertiser. Well, robots.txt, but who uses robots.txt, Balloon? You're close to the answer. The answer I'm looking for is Google. Expert.com, and then we go with red site. Oh, fuck it. Red sit. Let's just go labs dot expert dot com. Fuck it. Let's just do this. Yeah, I know. Fuck off. I didn't ask for your opinion. Okay, I just came here to teach you. So, fuck. Nothing. That's messed up. All right. I thought I was going to find more. Apparently, I don't. That's okay. Let's see. Maybe expert website. You show anything here? It shows nothing. It shows nothing. Okay. Fine. Fine. I'm not salty at all. What the fuck? All right. So what I was trying to say was indeed you can explore that. You can also do some content discovery and you have some really cool tools like Burp Suite Pro for that. But there are more search engines like Orgaset as well. Now, what the thing is with Red Site is for Hexpert. So there we go. So we have Hexpert login, Red Site. Well, that makes things a lot easier, doesn't it? We don't have red site on here. Damn it, why didn't I put that in public? Anyway, so we can see quite a few things from red site here. Let's go back to Wayback URLs. Let's go trying Wayback Machine because at a certain point, Expert had a lot of red site stuff in here. So let's try that. Let's try expert.com. Let's see if there's been indexing, which there probably has been. Let's go to sitemap. And here we can see throughout the years how the labs have evolved, or at least what has been indexed. We got something here that is red side in 2023. So that's probably not it in 2024. There's also not a whole lot indexed. Let's see here, anything we can identify. Oh, red side. Look at that shit. Go to page. We have that. Contact. What the fuck is Rickroll? Contact. The admin.php. Check that out. Angular test.php contacts. Go to page, index, orders.php. Interesting. Uploads, what's that all about? What's that upload section about? I want to see. Oh, check that shit out. What the fuck? I didn't know we had that many things on our web. Do we actually have that still up? I don't think that's still up, right? Let's see. Slash upload. Website slash. Oh, there's only a few now. I think we ought to clean this wing. Now, what else do we see? Orders.php. Unfortunately, I cannot see them. Now, what else do we see? Admin.php. Ah, look, it's asking us for a password. Wonder what happens when we enter that, Wesley's and Cheesy Boy. Oh, look, all of the freaking. That's awesome, right? These are all the flags, by the way. These are all the flags at the back end. And if you want to fuck with this website, guys, like it restores every 30 minutes automatically. So you're pretty much fighting a cron job that's going to restore that thing. Have fun with that. So basically what you see here is all of these little like flags that we can put to either 1, 0, or we can set everything to 1. Let's do that and let's go to orders.php again. Let's see what that gives. So now we can see orders. That's what I mean with every day this website can be different. Every day we can just hit the random button and you have a new random website to hack. That's why I like red site so much. Because that is what can also happen in real life, believe it or not, guys. In real life, they have an agile scenario where scenarios like these are not unthinkable because access control might be implemented properly at one point, but because of the implementation of a new feature or a new something, it might be totally fucked. That happens. That does happen. In production, that happens. Believe me, it does happen. Now I'm going to continue with my slides because I'm running short on time. But basically, all of these little red squares mean that a user cannot do something, and these green squares means that the user can do something. Which of these sections are you going to test, green or red? Write it in the chat below. Red. How about the other guys? Admiral, Tushar, what would you test? Red as well? Or would you go, I'm feeling sassy, I'm going green? Anything about you, Tushar? What would you test from these sections? The red ones or the green ones? You guys are right, by the way, red ones. And let me count these squares. That's 4 by 4. We have 16 squares in here, 16 tests. Which are the red ones? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 50% of your tests. I've just reduced your testing load by 50%. Are you grateful? You should be grateful. Fuck. I'm grateful to myself. That's 50% less testing. Hell yeah, dude. No, but that's what I mean with blindly testing a target. It's never a good thing. It's never a good idea. I would never do it. It's not good. It only brings you misery, pain. It definitely won't bring you what you need in terms of that. So currently the free meeting will end again in 10 meetings. I'm just going to go through the rest after that. Again, we're going to go to a new meeting. Fuck, I hate this stuff. Why the hell didn't I upgrade? You guys know what? Are you all in the Discord by now? Because if you are, we are just going to continue in the Discord and I'll record the OBS. That's no problem. Let's see the people that are not in the Discord. So we got Amir. If you are not in the Discord, could you please join there? I'll send another invite in the chat so everybody can join, but it would be easier to just continue there because I would like to go through this and we'll like stitch together the videos. That's no problem. Let's see, we do have quite a few sections to go through still, so I would like to finish those that we can continue in Discord. That would be amazing. If not, then I understand not everybody has Discord. Amir, there we go. We can add him to the lesson. So let's do that. How about you guys? Are you as well in the Discord? Admiral, are you Amir? Luden, are you in the Discord? Tushar, are you in the Discord? Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, dude. It's good because I need to grab a battery anyway. Oh, I really appreciate that, dude. Take your time. That way I can grab my charger. Goodbye. There we go. That's better. We have power. Oh yeah, there's definitely a Porsche waiting at the end of the rainbow. And a bunch of unicorns as well. Pretty unicorns. I don't know. What's wrong with the bot? What would be wrong with the bot? Just check if the bot has been started 3 times by accident. Maybe the bot process has been started up 3 times by accident. I've done that before.
I ain't got a clue. It was alright earlier when it added Marius and then you added somebody else and all of a sudden it's just gone fucking, it keeps
Haywire.
fucking repeating itself.
Love it.
I can't figure it out. And it was telling me like 2 times that I've updated the channel permissions. Okay, I'm going to log into this.
It's like everything is working against us, isn't it? We are a bunch of morons, that's what we are. Did we leak the token
Hey,
again?
I haven't been in the fucking server today, man.
Hey, there we go.
Right, so I'm going to mute myself. I'm going to go into the server.
Yeah, I will as well. All right, so I'll be going into the Discord as well, guys. There's this study room too that you can join. We can use that for now. In the future, or I guess it would be a good idea if this bot would also automatically create a voice channel. That's not a bad idea, is it?
Yeah, well, there's only one instance of Cheese Master running.
Okay, so if when I
I'm
talk to
going to
Cheese
kill it.
Master,
I'm going to kill it and restart it.
yeah, it keeps saying things. Cheese
Yeah,
Master
I
is
know, it's doing
completely
my head
lost
in.
its shit.
Right, I'm just going to kill it. Carry
All
on.
right, yeah, we can jump over to there, guys. I'll see you in the study room. Here we go. Gonna to start the screen recordings for part 3, and I'm going to share the screen. Just wait for the other guy to join, and then we can continue as a last part. And that way we can organize like a little bit of a study session later as well. There's a few more points that I want to touch upon, and of course Discord is fucking being a nice little dick when I want to share my screen. Great, that's just great. You guys know what? You know what? Fuck this shit. What I'm going to do is, I have the recording here anyway. You can watch back the recording. For now, I'm just gonna give you the link, and you can follow along. I'll tell you on what slide we are, and then you can just follow along with me. We're currently at slide 8 at this point. Orgus, I don't want beer. I haven't drank beer, but I drank the soda. I want some alcohol today. Mary should be proud of his Jimmy Dean obsession. Oh, Mary, she's here, right? Are you proud of me, Mary? Look at that. The Porsche's in the garage. It's yours? No, it's not. I'm not. It's yours. I mean, it's definitely yours, 1,000%. I'm not just sure that it's yours now yet. That's the problem. Like maybe in the future, I mean, in the future, sure. Yeah, that's for sure. It's gonna be yours. That's. Oh, so you want an old Porsche? Okay, no problem. I can easily get you a cheap Porsche. So, here we go. I got me my guinea pig. I got me my cuddle buddy. You're ready to go, Echo. I love you, Cassie. Oh, I love you so much, you Cassie. I love you so much. Oh shit, that wasn't needed. Alright, so since it's going to be recording as well through QuickTime, I'm going to continue so we can get through stuff. We've talked about what to test, we talked about what not to test, we talked about why to test, what to test. Let's talk about IDOR. IDOR is basically a subset of broken access control. Is all IDORs broken access control? Yes. Is all broken access control IDOR? No. What type is broken access control, horizontal or vertical? Since we talk about objects, since we don't talk about functions which you don't have access to, this is going to be your horizontal access control. So your horizontal, your vertical broken access control, try to remember those. Broken access control, we know that IDOR is an example of broken access control, but there are more types. As we saw on API, there's even 3 types. Remember that. Sorry about that. So we talked about this, we talked about this. So basically, once again, not every single application, not every single target that you are going to encounter is going to be sufficient for you, is going to be sufficient for testing this. You need at least different users for testing IDORs, and at least different users on different levels for testing other types of broken access control. So remember that, that's a big one. Then let's move on to slide number 12 at this moment. There are some examples of broken access control scenarios. You have the admin versus the normal user. You have the normal users versus a trial user. You might be able to access normal functionality with a trial user, which you should not be able to access, or on the same level. Now, this is all just very simple talk, because if we move to slide number 14, we can see that we have some manual testing, direct testing via browser tools. How do we do that? How do we test via the browser tools? Well, very simple. You can change an identifier in the developer console. So you can go to developer console of an application. You can right click anywhere. You can go to the network tab. And in most modern browsers, you can even repeat a request already if you right click it. So there's quite a few requests. Right now I'm right clicking these requests. Here in Chrome, I don't think there's the option to repeat a request, but I think in Edge there's the option at this point. I think in Firefox there's the option at this point. So you have options to edit and resend a request. In this case, I don't clearly find them marked, so I don't see them very obviously, but maybe I'm just looking over it. Just know that these browser tools sometimes do allow you to edit and resend requests, or just investigate and turn into a curl request, because you can right click any request in the developer tools and you can copy that as curl, for example, and then you just adjust the curl to what you need. That's simple, isn't it? I'm still at this point, this is just a little bit of manual intervention that I'm showing or trying to show, where I've right clicked on any web page. I've gone to the network tab, I've refreshed my page, and when I right click any of the items under the table, I can see very clearly a copy, and here I can say copy as curl, copy as PowerShell, copy as fetch. So there are ways that I can actually repeat these requests, copy what I need, get it that way. So let's move on to slide 15. That's not the only thing. In slide 15 you can also see the console testing. So what does that mean? Right next to the network tab in your developer console, you'll also see a little bit of a console tab. And there you can basically type out JavaScript functions, and if these JavaScript functions have to do with create, read, update, or delete of an object, that is very interesting for IDOR. So that is super interesting for people like us, of course. I don't have to draw a picture with that. You can also copy and paste URLs. You can log in with one user in Firefox, with another user in Chrome, and you can just copy the URL from Firefox to Chrome. You can enter it and you can see if it renders what needs to render. That is a way of testing. Of course, you need to make sure that the user doesn't have access to those access controls. So that's again on slide 15. And you need to, for this though, you need to log in as a high privileged user, copy that URL, and then paste it in the low privileged user's browser. And this is a very general theme that you're going to see across everything we will do across the coming weeks, is you will see that you need to log in as a high privileged user, see what they can do, and then copy that functionality and try to repeat it as a low privileged user, whether that be in the browser, whether that be in the developer console, whether that be in just like I don't know, like something like authorize. You need to set it up correctly, otherwise you're just going to copy that URL from a low privileged user to a high privileged user browser. That's going to render, you're going to think there's an IDOR, and you're going to look ridiculous. So make sure that you're always aware of what you're testing, fully aware. So important. Cannot overstress that. The console tab helps you find these JavaScript functions if you're not fully familiar with them. Like, some people cannot read JavaScript as well, which is understandable. Don't get me wrong about that, but I try to understand my websites well enough to where I can actually read their JavaScript, and in that regard I also know which functions are available. Sometimes I'm able to find even endpoints which are listed in these JavaScript files, or parameters which aren't touched upon by the application itself,
in functions which aren't used by the application itself, for example, or which are used in some kind of obscure business function. It's really easy to get endpoints that way. It's really easy to get secrets that way. And people think that obfuscating their JavaScript is sufficient, but it's not. The obfuscation isn't impossible, it's just boring work, that's all. You have some deobfuscation tools, but they don't work really well, in my opinion and my experience. And maybe with AI, deobfuscation will be a lot easier. Hey, who knows? Let's give that a shot later. But for now, it's really easy that you are able to just use IntelliSense in the browser's developer console, meaning you can actually just type something, start with typing something, and it'll autocomplete which functions are available to you. There's a lot of basic JavaScript functions, and I know which these basic JavaScript functions are. I know that because I've worked a lot with JavaScript. So for me, that is really easy to sift through. How can you know that? You work a lot with JavaScript. Simple. Don't be an idiot. I just told you I work a lot with JavaScript. Come on. So on for the advanced manual testing, quote unquote manual, because here you're going to set up like a man in the middle proxy, and in that regard you're going to choose something like Burp Suite or Zap or Charles or whatever man in the middle proxy you'd like, just to be able to do these requests as a high privileged user. Then you can send them all to the repeater. Later on you can log in with a low privileged user, and you can try to replace the authentication token. Remember, from the very start we were talking about authentication tokens. You can basically replace that authentication token with the authentication token of the other user that we had. So in this case, the high privileged authentication token, remove that, replace it with a low privileged, see if it actually renders. And in either cases, in either instances, you can just go through the application, you can open up these tabs in the repeater, you can go through them later, and you can replace them with another user that is on the same level as you, that has access to these objects. That's important that you don't try this with a low privileged user, because if they don't have access to the function anyway, then either is impossible, because they don't have access to any objects, let alone that one specific object. So that's an important one to note. Anything else I need to talk about in that regard? I don't think so, except for showing you that is one thing that I can still do and will probably try to do as well. I'll try to show you a little bit of what I mean there, and hopefully I can share my screen by then. I think it's probably just some kind of configuration which I have to get set up. I don't know for sure, but yeah, we'll see about that. Anyway, I see two people have joined as well. Oh, there we go, one's gone already. In the text channel there's a link to our PowerPoint if you want to follow along. Right now I am at slide 17, moving on to slide 18, and we are also working with a little bit of a recording. So these recordings will become available later on if you're interested. Now, when it comes to semi-automated strategies, what am I thinking here? I'm thinking about, for example, OWASP Zap with its authentication module. I'm thinking about burp extensions like authorize. I'm thinking about burp extensions like match and replace that can automatically replace these authentication tokens for you. You also have auto repeater and burp suite, which is useful for this kind of stuff. You can write your own man in the middle proxy for all I fucking care. This is a very simple concept. All you're going to do when you write something like that, and I want to do a bit of an experiment. Let's see how long it takes me with the help of AI. I guess, yeah, who cares, right? To write something useful in that regard. Write me a Python script that is a man in the middle proxy and will repeat every request, but will replace the auth header with one I pass as an external variable. If the response is the exact same, aka if it renders, you need to log it into a file as so the basically endpoint user1 header user2 header, and then we say something like match, and then we can do the same for if it's very similar, there we go, versus if the response is the same code but different content. For example, replace the match with similar, and if they don't match at all, say nope. Took me a little bit to describe, but like what I have now is basically a Python script that's going to do the exact same as extensions like Burp Suite's authorize for you. In essence, in core, this is the exact same thing. This is what authorize does. This is exactly what authorize does, and it may have a little bit more configuration, may have a little bit more options, but let's be fair. Who of us has ever used more than 2 options in authorize? Hands up. Anybody else? Yeah, exactly, that's what I thought. Like authorize basically is made in almost the perfect way because the idea behind it is perfect. You can see here that upon initialization, you'll see that user2 header name and header value. So this is the authorization header. We put the authorization header here. Fuck, I lost it. Fuck. There we go. So we put the authorization header here, and we have a log file that's being opened. Then we're going to get a URL library started, we're going to get the method started, we're going to get the headers, we're going to get the data in there, and then we're going to get the user1 headers value. We're going to send the request with those headers, replace it with the second guy, then we're going to, perfect, let's replace those, let's send those over, compare those results, log them into a file, and that's it. That's it. And what you then do is indeed you do pip install man in the middle proxy. You make sure that you have these variables set properly. You run that. You set the proxy of your browser to this. And bam, Bob's your uncle. No, how do they say that? Bob's your auntie, Bob's your, I don't know. Bob's your transvestite, creepy uncle for all I care. Nothing against those people, by the way. It's just that Bob is a really creepy old fucker. Jesus Christ, that guy is creepy, dude. Slap like a leave a shot. I love you. I love you, Shetty. Alright, so it's fucking impressive that we've been able to get ChatGPT to write this in a few lines of code, right? Now, I want a few options. I want to be able to add a scope so it doesn't wander outside of scope, and I want to be able to add certain endpoints to not test in a separate config file. Anything else that we need to add, guys? Separate config file. Also, my students love pretty, oh fuck, I'm not able to show you guys this, right? So let me show you guys the script that it has created, because I think it's actually kind of fucking nice. Okay, so I need to upload this as a file, but I'm going to send the script that it has created in this channel so you guys can enjoy in its glory as well. And basically, if you then download this script, if you install man in the middle proxy, if you then start that up, set your proxy properly, you're going to have something like authorize. And I'm going to now say also, my students love pretty colors, so please make a nice HTML report that gives a very clear pen test like vibe. Here we go. We already have more features than before. So now it's creating a second script. This is with ChatGPT, guys. Anybody has access to ChatGPT free, and if you really think about what you're going to test, you can squeeze the ever living shit out of this thing. Like if I had this in my first message, all of my requirements properly, and I only have like 10 messages a day. I don't know how much the free version has, but if you only have a certain amount of messages per day, like the thing that has been written right now is fantastic, I'll tell you. I'll show you guys the script. Try it out for yourself. I promise there's no fucking virus in it. Orgus has removed all of the viruses from before, I think. No, seriously, there's no virus in there. You can just run this shit, and if you don't trust me, then just read the fucking code. It's open source, come on, fuck's sake. Anyway, what this does well is it has a config file. Basically, it has a nice report as well. It's going to have a certain scope that we can set up. It's going to have certain excluded words that we don't want to go towards. This is a fantastic script, guys. It's really well done. You can have excluded endpoints, you can have certain scopes, you can set external variables, start the script, and you have a nice report file at the end. That's fantastic. Funny thing is, note, since I can't display images, please imagine a well-structured table with color-coded rows as described. Please generate a sample HTML report for me. I love GPT Pro, by the way, guys. It's really worth it, especially if you're a bug bounty hunter, but only if you know what you're already doing. The thing with this thing is, if you get what you feed it. If you feed it shit, you get shit. If you feed it nice, simple requirements, you get nice, concise answers from it. So it's up to you kind of what you get out of it. But if you feed this proper questions, you're gonna get proper answers, my friends. This is the code that it has generated. Let's see if that is nice. Let's see if that's actually fancy. This is what the report should start looking like. So I'll upload this as well. This is what the report should be looking like, and that's not .txt, that's .html, of course. This is a nice script. I think I'm going to write a nice write-up around this. This makes a very, very, very nice fucking report, dude. I love it. I love it. It's fantastic. This is fucking great, dude. I need to save this script. Orgus? Orgus? I'm gonna save the second version of the script. Let's do it that way. Let's do it that way. I like it that way. So this is the version of the script, which is let's put that on GitHub. I have that security repo. I think I should have a security repo, security testing, that's the one. Let's add it to here, and let's add it to scripts, and let's create a new script here. Scripts, add file, create new file. What should we call this one? Let's call this BAC test, BAC proxy .py. There we go. Now, as you might notice, this thing generates the man-in-the-middle report when it's shutting down, which is fucking fantastic. I love this, I really do. I'm going to use this myself, I believe. Let's do that. Let's do that. Let's use this myself. Anyway, if you guys are interested in that script, I'm gonna link it here. It's the same script as I've linked before. Let's talk a little bit more about broken access control before I make everybody fall asleep here. So let's move on to slide 19, and I'll share that link once more so you guys are aware of where I'm going. The link to that will be shared here. There we go. In the text channel, slide 19. IDORs, we talk about objects. Objects, what do objects have? Identifiers. That's how you can recognize an object. You need to be able to know what object you're talking to. An identifier can just be sequential, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. An object identifier can be a GUID. You know, those weird texts with like a dash in between. That's also a possibility. On slide 20, we talk about the differences once again between authorization and authentication. I've went pretty deep into that today already, I would say. And here's a little impressive one, 21. This is where to look for IDOR vulnerabilities. Because a lot of people look into parameters, that's fine, but how do you find the most amount of parameters? By being able to search the best. Like, the thing is, you need to be able to be brute forcing, and you need to be able to do enumeration to find good parameters. Because you need to, for all of these pages, try at least a little bit of brute forcing, in my opinion. You need to find the right pages, and you need to find the right parameters for all of those pages. You need to be able to read JavaScript to find hidden parameters. You need to be able to use Google, and you need to be able to use GitHub to find hidden parameters. Headers and cookies are often hiding identifiers, which a lot of people don't even check for. And then you have file imports are often a way which inject direct object identifiers. Like, for example, if I can edit products, but I can only edit my products, that's one thing. But like, how should I put this? If I can then import a file, and if that file contains an identifier of an already existing product that's mine, I will change my product. But since it's the machine that talks to a machine, I mean, it's a file that imports, so it's the import process that's going to do the updating. We're going to assume that authorization is already there because we're shitty developers. Well, there we go. You have yourself a pretty big issue on your hands. And this happened to me twice. Twice on a very simple file import. Why is that? Because those file imports were hidden. Like, not hidden, but you only found them if you looked really carefully through the documentation. They weren't linked on the website or anything. Those file imports were for if you had basically, how do I put this, if you had a lot of data when you want to get started, or if you're like an older customer who needed to update their data all at once. It was like a really hidden endpoint that was hardly ever used. But these endpoints contained 2 file uploads, which both were vulnerable, and these were 2 vulnerabilities in one. I was bummed out by the end by how many reports I had to write in terms of IDOR and broken access control, my dudes. And that is not an exaggeration. I was like, oh, another one, fuck's sake. I know I'm gonna get 250 euros for this, but I'm writing reports all fucking day long at this point. And I was really, because in like less than a month, I was in the top 20 of integrity. Now I very explicitly don't mention what my bug bounty profile is. Why is that? Because I don't want people to buy my courses based on who my bug bounty personality is. Like, I teach you how to hack, I can teach you how to do bug bounties, but I don't want you to judge based on how many things I'm currently finding or whatever. I've proven to everybody that I can do this. I've very clearly proven that. But I'm also at a certain point where I want to say, don't buy my course because I have a million bugs. You know what I mean? Buy my courses because you believe that my skill set can bring value to whatever you're trying to do. And I hope that I'm trying to also prove that here a little bit today, that whatever I do has value to whatever you are trying to achieve. The only problem is often application, because when you have this big, wide network of things you can hack, finding the thing to hack is often a fucking disaster. It is. It is a true proper disaster. Finding a program you like is shit. So that is exactly why I'm going to give you guys recommendations on what programs to hack. Let's start with one on integrity called Enviso Team Leader. Integrity Team Leader. Now, why do I recommend Team Leader? I also have that. Oh, nice. I got my own sponsored post. Dude, I got my own fucking advertisement. I got my own fucking advertisement. That's nice. That's very nice. That's very, very fucking nice. Anyway, let's see. Integrity and Viso should be here. And Viso. Yeah, the problem with integrity is that I need to go to the bug bounty programs to find that. So let's see, team leader. It can be that these are registered programs, but that's okay. That just means that you need to register for the website. That's all that means. So I thought team leader was still on here, but team leader seems to be a registered application. So that just means that you need to sign in and you can find team leader. I need to log in with my proper email address. That's not what I needed to do. Fuck. Holy shit. How many invites is that? I have 131 invites. Fuck. So let's see here. So Enviso should still be up. Team leader, fuck, team leader closed. That's a shame. Let's talk about Enviso then, because I'm pretty sure that one's still up. I'll show you guys. There we go. So let's open that program and I'll link it as well for the guys in Discord. There we go, my friends. Now, what is Enviso? Enviso is a ticketing system. What does that mean? If you have a theme park, if you have a venue, whatever it can be, you can sell tickets through this. You have the resellers and you have the venues themselves. This means that you have different account types even before you get started. Within those account types, you will have different account types. You can have different venues that are connected to different resellers, and those resellers can sometimes access objects of those venues and sometimes not. There's an either possibility there. You have different tenants. You can have even different locations of a chain. This is a massive application with a shit ton of different APIs and almost spot on documentation. So this is a great example of something you should be focusing on. Do you want an example of something you shouldn't be focusing on at all? Something that is shit to focus on? I'll give you guys something. Let's see here. Programs. I'll have to remove my filter. One here. Algemeen Dagblad. This is shit. Do not hack on this if you want to hack like we do with broken access control. You get to maybe log in, so maybe there's some kind of IDOR to be had here, but I can assure you that your attack surface on this is going to be 95% less than what it is on the previous one. And people say to me, they literally have the guts to come to me and tell me that a single app like Enviso, for example, like the one that I've shared with you guys, they have the guts to tell me that this doesn't have a lot of attack surface. My friends, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32 different APIs. If anybody has the guts to tell me that main app hacking doesn't have a lot of scope, fuck, dude. Fuck. I just can't teach these guys. I just can't. Luckily, you guys do listen to me, and now you know that main application does have a literal shit ton of scope of attack surface that you can look into, and especially with documentation like this, it is of the utmost importance that you work with applications that have proper documentation. Why would you go and look at all of this yourself if there is something that has been documented before you? Just so you know, just so you know, it's important as fuck to have documentation. And I know as well, just as well as anybody else, that not all of the documentation for Enviso is quite up to date, but they have code samples for you to fuck with their APIs. What do you want more than this? Would you like them to bring it to you on a golden fucking tray? Fuck's sake, dude. And a lot of people tell me they can't communicate with the API. And look at that, by the way, guys. Like if you look at the leaderboard, the all-time leaderboard, not the last contributors of that Gartner and Viso system that I sent you, on spot number 3, you'll see the amazing ferret. That's my former account. That's my former bug bounty account. Just so if you ever see that guy pop up, even after all of these years of not hacking on this account, I'm literally talking 4 or 5 years, I'm still at the top 3 in this leaderboard. Fuck, right? So I guess you could say that I know what I'm talking about when it comes to this little fucker. I've squeezed so much money out of them, it's unfair. It's almost unfair. Not really, because I deserve that money. Fuck them. I like to see servers suffer, to be fair. Like that's basically what I go for. I just like to see them suffer and scream and squirrel, and especially in production. Such a good feeling. Oh fuck, I'm recording myself, aren't I? Okay, so back on track before I incriminate myself even further. So what else do we have? Let's move onwards to slide 22. In terms of objects, you can refer to an object by its own ID, or you can say object belongs to user ID if that user has one or multiple objects, of course. So basically, you can say invoices ID equals 1 or invoices owner equals 1, 2, 3. It's an important distinction to make, and also that multi-tenancy distinction. Now, what does that mean? Basically, if you look at slide 23, the old system, every single customer had their own complete system set up. In the new world, basically, these companies have one database system set up, and every customer is on that same database system. That's what they call multi-tenancy. So basically, it means that customer A and customer B, the only thing that separates their data is not logical servers or physical servers or whatever. It is just application logic. So I hope that's clear. Is that clear to everybody here what multi-tenancy actually means? If not, feel free to stop me. Okay, so that seems clear. Then let's talk about primary versus secondary IDORs. Primary IDORs, I think that's clear what that means. You have direct access to a system. You're directly going to access an object, read, update, delete, whatever, directly. A secondary IDOR is you're going to make the system do it for you. And this is where it gets fun, because there are multi-levels of IDOR. Basically, data gets passed around in between components, and if you are able to talk to a component and you're able to make it do something for you in another component, that's fantastic, isn't it? Like, for example, if you cannot access invoices, if your account doesn't have access to invoices, but there's a module to print invoices, and you can just pass it an identifier and you still see that invoice anyway, well, there you go, Bob's your auntie. Did I say that right this time, Morgus? Are you proud of me now? Fuck, I tried, dude. Fuck. Bob's your Apache attack helicopter. There we go. So, I think I've explained my relevant experience of bug hunting when it comes to broken access control, when it comes to iDoors. First things first, find the right platform. Don't go for anything like Bugcrowd. Don't go for anything like HackerOne. Everybody and their grandmother is on there. Literally, my grandmother hacks on HackerOne. She's in the top 5. Nice lady. She bakes great cookies. But try something more discreet, like for example integrity.com, or if you haven't heard of this yet, not every day but sometimes this website called bugbounty.jp, a Japanese bug bounty website, also has good targets and good good rewards basically. Oh shit, fuck, that's not what I wanted. it, it yeah, no, fuck, that's not what I wanted at all. Bugbounty.sa, is that the one? Fuck it, bugbounty.sa. Is that also a platform? Yeah, why not? Never heard of it before, don't know what the reputation is, but give it a shot, you know, you never know. There's so many bug bounty platforms out there. What's that thing called again? Fire Bounty or something? Yeah, it's Fire Bounty. Fire Bounty is great for discovering new things to hack. Sorry, let's see. What do you mean with why? Oh, yes, we hack. Yes, we hack is, well, the thing is, don't feel like you shouldn't hack on this. It's just that I don't recommend this because I recommend integrity. And yes, it's basically one or the other. It's like team Bella versus team Jacob or whatever you call that shit. Like there's basically these two don't mix. Like yes, we hack and integrity hate each other guts, but that doesn't prevent you from hacking on there. You shouldn't give a shit about that. You shouldn't give a flying shit about anything besides hacking and bug bounties. So yes, we hack. Yes, do I recommend it? For sure, dude. For sure. There's definitely a lot to be had there as well in terms of programs and applications, and they're getting more and more every day. I think, and I honestly do think that integrity is becoming a little bit bigger sometimes. Yes, we hack, but they have nice as a great API, for example. Their API is fantastic, dude. I'll send you guys the documentation. There we go. And what they also have is Fire Bounty. Fire Bounty is theirs, I believe. Fire Bounty is made by Yes We Hack. And please correct me if I'm wrong. No, that's indeed a Yes We Hack product. So I think you have enough to do there in terms of finding the right application. What should you avoid? Newspapers, blog websites, any type of web shop, any type of business to consumer application should be avoided like the plague. What should you be looking at? Business to business applications, HR, invoicing, CRM. Those things are what matters. Those things are where you should be looking at. Now, I want to ask, are there any questions from you guys at this point? Anything at all? No, okay, then what I'm going to do is, with all of this newfound knowledge, what I would like you to do, since you guys are in our Discord channel anyway, there's a homework channel, and I will put that up as well. Let's see if we can find it. Fuck, there's homework help. There should be. Yes, for sure, dude. How are you doing, mate? Good to see you, Brave. I'm good, thank you. Thanks for joining, by the way. I really appreciate it, mate. Of course, man. Go ahead. Can I help you? Yeah, for sure, dude. For sure, it's very clear what you're asking as well, because I've had that exact same feeling as you guys. At the very start, when you do bug bounties, basically the question that was asked is like, okay, how do you get over the fact that other people have such an advantage over you if they're so long in the field, right? If if I've been doing this for so long and you're just learning broken access control, how can you get into it when you have so many assets to discover? Am I correct in that assumption? Did you ask that question, or is there something I missed there? Perfect. So basically, what I can advise you there is very simple, and that's persistence. Like in this field, the people who adapt are the people who will survive. And that is very simple because you're going to run across applications. Now, the first thing, the very first step that you need to do is find the right application. And when you have found the right application, something like Enviso that I've just shown you, it's going to take you at least a week to fully explore it, because you are going to take the manual that comes across with Enviso and you're going to go through every function that exists with burp open in the background. Everything I mean. And then you're going to try and do API calls through Burp Suite, and you're just going to go at it as much as possible as far as your knowledge will reach. And then you're going to go to Google, Wayback Machine. You're going to go to GitHub. You're going to go and try to find parameters which are very, very out of the way. But first, start with the simple shit, my dude. Start with the stuff that you know. Start with not working with APIs. Start with just clicking through the application. And then when you've clicked through the application, you're basically easily able to go through all of these endpoints and test them for access control issues. Especially with what I've been trying to show you guys today. I know it's not been very practical, but I'll have future lessons in which I will show you in a very practical way of how to do what I'm trying to show you or tell you here. Now, it's not simple. I'm trying to say it's not difficult. It's not difficult at all to a degree, because it all comes down to the fact that if you take the highest level account you can, so if you register as an admin, and as an admin you go through the entire website, every fucking thing, every last bit of it, all you have to do is then register an account as an admin. You go to your users and you click on add new user, and you give him no rights at all, the least amount of rights possible. And then you go through your burp suite list, through all of these calls, and you see which of these calls execute a function which you've taken away the rights from that user. So if you see invoices and the user cannot access invoices, you replace the authorization header in the call with the one from the low privileged user. And if it succeeds, if it goes through, it's very clear that there's a broken access control issue going on there. If the user shouldn't have access to invoices, but you're able to execute a call to the invoices by adding a low privileged authorization header, you clearly have an issue there, right? I hope that's clear, man. Now, when you've done that, like when you've done all of this, some applications like this will have different types of accounts you can create as well. So you'll have a user and an account. An account is basically, I register with a website and I get an admin user, but the account I register can be the account for my company, and then I get an admin user to that account. So you have the account with different users. You can have different accounts on one system where there's 5 accounts. All of these accounts can have their own layer of users within them, and all of these users have access or not access to different objects and functions. So you have different levels in a pyramid almost. The lowest level is properties. Why? Because there's a billion properties within an application, every object will have at least 100 properties. That's an exaggeration, but it's just to illustrate a point. Every object will have God knows how many properties. All of these properties might or might not have functions on them. So you can already see a very big layer of properties with functions and objects on top of that. On top of those are users who might or might not belong to certain groups, user groups. And a group can have access to an object or not, and a user can have access to an object or not. And group and user rights might even be conflicting. There, a group might not have access to a specific object, but a user might have specific access to an object to override that. So then you can come into a scenario where you report a bug that isn't a true bug because the user that has access to that object belongs to a group that has no access. But that doesn't mean the user itself has no access if those user settings override the group settings. So you can see it's very complicated, which is why exactly in the next session that's coming up, I'm going to try and apply this. Like on the target that I've shown you on Enviso, and for that we have to agree that all of us are going to work together on that target, of course, as a team. But I want to show you exactly what I mean, because it's a very difficult thing to explain if you don't show it on a real target. I don't know if you caught the beginning, but at the very start I said this is so difficult because you're all practicing on labs, but to practice on a lab doesn't mean at all that you know how to do this in a real world scenario where you're going to have 500 different APIs with 200 different endpoints each, and each endpoint having different properties which you can manipulate. It's a very different game than when you do a lab that's specifically designed to only have 12 parameters and make it easy to find the one that's vulnerable. I know that that distinction is clear to all of you, but I know that also sometimes it takes some moron like me to say it, where it's like, oh, right, he's correct. And that's often a missing link, and that's also why a lot of people find it so difficult to jump in. But make sure that you don't mix up your phases. If you've ever learned anything about pen testing, it is that there's different phases in a pen test. Your first phases are information gathering, exploration. Don't skip those. A lot of people want to throw themselves into hacking straight up. Don't. Read the fucking manual. Take the time to know what each parameter does. If you see a request in Burp Suite, but you don't know what the parameter does, try to find that request again. Try to change a few things on the screen. Try to see what changes in the request. Try to see what those parameters do. But you have to figure out an application inside and out, and that is what makes bug bounty one of the most difficult topics that there is. It's not just about hacking, it's about application logic. That is the biggest part, is application logic and finding all of the different endpoints which have access to. I hope that answers your question a bit, my friend. I know I can ramble like that. You're doing well, man. Don't give up. I know it can be quite demoralizing to hit your head against the wall like a fucking moron from time to time, but dude, believe me, we all did that. It's good. It's good to hit your head against the wall. It might wake you up sometimes. You wanna know a funny story? The first few reports I made on HackerOne were so bad I got negative karma and I couldn't post for 30 days. I found a legitimate cross-site scripting in Roblox. Yes, the children's game Roblox, where you entered that in your browser. You entered the name of your world as a cross-site scripting attack vector, and in the desktop client it would pop an XSS attack vector. I actually found that. I couldn't report it for 30 days. After 30 days I reported it and I got a fucking dupe. That's demoralizing. Like, your first 5 reports are so shit you can't post anymore for 30 days, and when you can finally post, the thing you actually found is a dupe. That's fucking demoralizing, dude. But I bit through and I just didn't give a fuck. I was like, I am gonna show you that I'm made of something. And I did eventually find my groove. And why is that? Because if you throw me in a lion's cage, I'm a rat. I'll learn how to fight. I'll fight dirty because I'm fighting lions, but I'll fight. That's no problem. I don't give a fuck. If everybody else is looking for technical vulnerabilities and scripting and automating everything, I'm not gonna do that. Why would I do that? Everybody else is doing it anyway. I'm gonna be smart about this. I'm gonna use my wits. I'm gonna try to find parameters in my way, and I'm going to try to look at the JavaScript. And while everybody is frantically hacking and throwing their keyboards at the wall just to type out the fucking script, I'm cozily reading a manual in my bathtub, falling half asleep, just trying to understand the application I'm testing inside and out. And I get bored with the applications I test. At that point, I start to get creative. But you need time, you need to invest, and you need to make sure that you know that that investment could lead to nothing. Very well could lead to nothing in a sense that you could invest 60 hours into bug hunting. You could very well invest that, but you need to spend that time to know if it will be effective or not. And 60 hours is nothing. I would say if you want to know if you're really made for bug hunting, how long do you hunt per day, Brave? I'm curious. Just a question. Or per week, that's also fine. It doesn't matter. Mostly 10 hours I see here. So 10 hours per week is per day. What what does that balloon per day? You hunt 10 hours per day. Okay, and how effectively do you hunt during those 10 hours? Like how long do you stick with one target? We got a 10 hours per day, so somebody's hunting, which is great, by the way. I used to hunt 8 hours per day after an 8-hour job, so like don't blame me for that, but I used to hunt 8 hours per day, and that's at the very least something you're going to have to invest is 45 hours per day at the minimum, at the bare minimum. People who say that they hack for 2 to 3 hours per day and they rake in the cash, either they're lying, they're great at automating, or they have found some kind of secret sauce formula that is so fucking secret that they can't share it with the world. But I don't fucking buy it. Like I don't fucking buy that they are just able to find things in 2 minutes without having proper knowledge of what they're testing. Like the thing with these types of things is that if you do bug hunting, you need to be on your toes, very, very much so. Because if you are a developer, look at it this way, I can protect 99.9% of my endpoints. I only need to forget one out of a million. You need to only be right on one chance that you take, but you need to make a million chances. Aha. That's a good way to look at it, doesn't it? I do record my time only when I feel active, so stick to my screen. I keep it pure learning, hunting time records. What I would suggest is that you stick to the same target for at least a few months, but actually get to know it and explore it, and know hacking first. So with this Enviso, if you want Beluden, you can in this Discord channel, you can send me a little bit of a like how should I put this, like you can send me a bit of an overview of what you've been testing, and I can't promise I'll get back to you immediately at all, but I will get back to you at a certain point to see what you have been testing as well, or you can just show me next week, of course, if you are really interested in that. But it's we do these types of things every week, and we have a stand-up weekly as well, by the way. Normally today it didn't go through, but that's because I really wanted to be ready for a lesson like this. It's been my first lesson in a long time and I've really enjoyed it. Now I'm gonna show you guys one more last fucking amazing thing. Check this out. So what I'm showing on my screen now is basically a patch notes. It shows you when which version has been released and what was included in those versions. That's interesting, isn't it? So basically just do your best in mapping out the application as good as humanly possible. If you have to run content discovery in the background, please do. Don't just do enumeration, but also do brute forcing. Both go in harmony. It's like yin and yang. And make sure that you read your fucking documentation, for fuck's sake. You should be documenting these applications yourself. If I ask you what is this application like, I need to get pages and pages of documentation that you've written for yourself. I don't need to get a quick explanation from you, because right now you might remember this, but what if these applications suddenly close their programs and you want to come back to this 5 weeks later? When it reopens, are you still gonna remember what you did then? Do you still know what this application is, what it's like? Do you still know all of the nooks and crannies, all of the special little things that you had to do? I don't. I'm gonna honestly say that I am not smart enough to remember that kind of shit. If you are, that's fantastic, but believe me, I'm not. So I don't like to trust on my memory. And one thing that I can recommend you is just record everything you do while you're hunting for yourself. You don't have to share that with the world. But if you have something tomorrow and you're like, I'm so sure there was a bug there yesterday, you can just look back at your recordings. That's a little bit of a pro tip from Uncle Rat. Also, if you don't exactly remember how you got into a certain screen, just look back at your recordings. I mean, your notes are fine, your notes are dandy, but if you missed to note down something, then you still have that recording, right? My friends, this lesson was supposed to take an hour. It's already taken 2 hours and 13 minutes. Is there anything else I can help you with? Because I'd love to answer questions, of course, if there are. If there aren't, Sorry, go ahead, Brave. Mm-hmm. So, the problem is the question that you've asked me is incorrect. If you look back at the recordings, and I'll share those as well, but the recordings, you will see very easily that I said that you shouldn't be looking for bugs, you should be looking for ways to find bugs. Like learning a bug, to be fair, you should learn as many bugs as humanly possible. That is obvious, but there are so many that you can learn that you can infinitely go on. If you just learn a couple basic ones, and this is why I'm starting with broken access control, but broken access control alone is enough to hunt, guys. Broken access control is sufficient to go hunt and find a lot of stuff if you pick the right target. If you don't, well then duh, that's up to you. That you picked the wrong target, dummy. What do you want me to say? But basically, no, I'm joking, by the way. I'm joking about the dummy stuff. But no, you really do need to pick a good target. You need to actively hunt for a couple of months on that one target for that one vulnerability type. But the advantage is that if you know multiple vulnerability types, you can use that to identify more parameters that you can test for different vulnerability types. Because the whole goal is, if you test your application, you want to identify any identifier, because that references an object. So you want to go and look at all of the parameters that are identifiers, and that's what you test for IDOR. You're not gonna test a search bar of a website for IDOR. You're just not. So it's simple. Learn what type of parameters are vulnerable. And for IDOR, you can very easily do that. Now, it may be a little bit more difficult if you don't have practical experience. But what I'm going to do for you there is I'm going to set up a video, or like I'm going to link a little bit of a video from yours truly here about authorize. And authorize teaches you how to, ooh, fuck, I might not be sharing my screen anymore. Authorize is going to learn or teach you how to actually look for IDORs in a semi-automated way. So there we go. I also have this one, copy link address. I keep getting a lot of questions about it, but authorize is a great extension in that regard. Now, if you know SQL injection, then you're also able to identify any parameters that do SQL queries like create, read, update, delete, and you're able to test those for SQL injection. If you also know XSS, you're able to test parameters which reflect back into pages, and you might be able to pop an XSS that way. So it's all about the more you know, the more you can test the target. But that also means that if you know a target, you can keep going through a target once you learn new vulnerability types. Because you have the parameters from previous explorations, you have them all. So you can just, you don't even need to do the walking stage again. You can just start with finding the right parameters. That can be number one priority at that point, where other people might have to. And the good thing is, when you retest, you might also get new ideas. Like when you see these parameters, and you go through your list in verb suite again, you might be, oh, wait a second, I haven't seen that parameter before in depth. Let's go and see what that does. Oh, will you look at that? That's another issue. So make sure that you're able to identify these types of parameters for which you are learning the attack vectors. And how can you do that? From the start, from the very first lab that you do, try to very clearly take in mind how you would find that specific parameter if it were a bigger application. What is so special about that parameter at that point? And if it's about IDORs, it's very simple. It's an identifier. It'll say ID equals. That is your clue there. If it's a broken access control, you're looking for functions there. So you're looking for any endpoint, you're not looking for a parameter at that point. Quite a few things that we could say about that, but I hope that helps a little bit. As a beginner, one type is enough, more than enough, as long as you're more than willing to retest an application. A lot of people think they're above retesting and they only want to do the real quote-unquote impactful attacks. Stop thinking about attacks. Start thinking about exploration. How does this application work? What kind of access control is applied here? How is that access control applied? Any way I could bypass the application of the access control? I must test all of the endpoints that have that access control applied. I must have all of the parameters that have that access control applied. It's basically a cat and mouse game. Like, we're just trying to catch the developer off guard because we know that all of these developers know how to write secure code. Like, $1 million company isn't going to invite shit developers into their ecosystem. They're just not going to do that. They're going to know that, like, the people they hire, they know what they're fucking doing. They have expertise in that kind of stuff. So it's important to realize that what we are trying to do is not to spot that major flaw throughout the entire application, but we are just trying to spot the parameter that has that flow within, or flaw, I should say. Anyway, ladies and gents, I hope you enjoyed that. If there are more questions, I'm gonna ask you to type them out in the chat, but don't hesitate to type them out because I'm more than willing to answer them. It's just that at this moment I'm going to take a little bit of a break myself. My voice is hoarse, and I want to vape some, yeah, some broccoli. Anyway, I'll see you guys later. Thank you so much for showing up. Really, really appreciate it as always.